Okay, let's just make sure this is working correctly. Do we have a stream? Do we have a stream is the question we are going to ask. Okay, looks like we're in business. The stream is operating. I'm just going to pull it up on a second screen so I can see what's going on. And we'll give it a few moments. We are in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We're just waiting for things to warm up on the second screen, which they are doing. 2 people are watching already. That's a bit crazy. One of them is me, obviously, but I need to mute myself, otherwise I get to hear myself talking a couple of minutes after the fact. So we're going to do a flight today from Monterey Regional over to San Francisco International in the A320, so it's a really short flight, so it won't take very long. I've just reinstalled the A320 fly-by-wire development version, so we're going to have a look at it with configuring the aircraft and hopefully getting it up and running. So let's zoom out and have a look at this thing. It's a gorgeous looking aeroplane. I'm not sure I like the colour scheme, the factory colour scheme from fly-by-wire, but you know, I guess it's serviceable. Okay, let's get inside the aircraft and see what we need to do. So first things first, we will go and turn the batteries on. External power is available, so we will use it. And then we will go up above and turn on the inertial navigation system. Okay. First things first then, APU we're going to switch on or turn the master switch on and then the start switch for the APU. If we come down and look on the ECAM screen, it will have automatically changed. So while we're waiting for the APU to come up, let's go and sort out some of these screen brightnesses. So, primary flight display. And then we'll change the brightnesses of these two with the the brightness knobs here. Listen to me. And then we can see got some alerts here. The parking brake is on, TCAS is on standby, so we can turn TCAS on. Okay, and we can see we've got voltage coming from the APU now. So we can turn on the APU bleed. We can go and switch on the fuel pumps. We can turn the crew supply of oxygen on. And over here we can go and arm the emergency lights, turn the no smoking sign on, put the seatbelt sign on. We're about to start the engines. We're doing things slightly out of order. Normally you would push back before you start the engines. So we can turn the mode to start. We've got APU bleed on. And we will go and start the engines. So you can see over here on the status screen the N2, this is the gas turbine percentage speed of the right hand engine is coming up to 20. It will climb through 25. You'll see the exhaust gas temperature raise and the N1 speed come up. So there it goes. So the fuel has been injected into the engine. When you get to 25%, that's as fast as the compressed air from the APU can spin the engine. So if you haven't got the fuel pumps on, then obviously no fuel is going to get into the engine and it won't ignite and bootstrap the rest of the spin up sequence. So we've now got the N1, which is the turbofan. There's 2 parts to the jet engines. There's the gas turbine and the turbofan. And you can see that's coming up. So now we can go and switch on engine number 1. You'll see the gas turbines coming up for engine number 1. Exhaust gas temperature is slowly raising on that one as well. Engine number 2 has stabilised. Okay, so while we're waiting for the engines, let's go and have a little look in the MCDU. So go to the initialization page. We are going to clear that message, and so we're going to put in the from and to. So let's go and look at this nav map. We're flying from KMRY, which is Monterey, and we're flying to San Francisco. That's KSFO. So we plug those into the screen and go back. So we've got the from and to programmed in. We can give ourselves a flight number, so we'll just make something up, ABC 123. And a cost index. A cost index is a formula that governs how aggressively the aircraft can accelerate and climb. When it's on autopilot, I should say. So, and then we've got cruise flight level and temperature. We only have to put the flight level in, it will work the temperature out for itself. So the flight level we're going to fly at is 20,000 feet. So we're going to say 200. We can go in and look in the IRS initialization, which just to make sure it's there, which is the alignment of the inertial guidance system. Because I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but these big airliners don't just use the GPS, they also use inertial navigation, so it's a combination of the two things. Okay, so we can now go and look in the flight plan, and you can see the beginning and the end of the flight plan. So we're going to program a standard instrument departure from Monterey of TORO7. So let's go and click on Monterey on the flight plan legs, select a departure, and we're going to leave on runway 10 left on Toro 7 on the SID. So 10 left and Toro 7. And it's saying, have we got a transition waypoint? We're going to end up at PXN. So is it there on the list? Shall we go and have a look further down? There it is. So that gives us the 10 left Toro 7 departure heading towards PXN, and we insert that into the flight plan. So we've now got some legs in the flight plan. So if we go and scroll further down, there's KSFO at the end. When we arrive at KSFO, let's go and have a look first at San Francisco. We're going to come in on the Always star and come into ILS on runway 19 left. So arrival, ILS 19 left. I'm using the Always 2 star standard instrument approach route. So there it goes. Do we have a VIA? Let's have a look. No, we don't need to worry about that, so we'll insert it. And then we can go back. So now we've got the flight plan programmed in, but we've got a discontinuity here. It's because there's a manual step here. So if we go and clear the manual step out, we've still got the discontinuity there, but we can put some waypoints in. So PXN, it should already be there, and it is. So let's go and put HYP in after PXN. So HYP just before we go into the Always part of the... Is it going to do it? There it goes, HYP. We should be able to clear out the discontinuity now as well because we've got rid of manual. There we go. So our flight plan should be looking... Yeah, it's coloured in with a solid line now. And that's because we've got a dot, so we're in managed mode on the heading, so it appears as a solid line. Just to illustrate that, if we convert this back to selected heading mode, it becomes a dotted line on the flight plan there. So we'll put it back in managed mode. If you want to check what you've got, you can rotate the knob for the selector for this display to plan, and then the up and down arrows on the MCDU will flick through the waypoints, so you get to have a look at them. Okay, and if that isn't making a lot of sense, you can zoom out so you can get a higher level view of your flight plan. Yeah, so then you can skip through with the up and down arrow to look at them. Okay, so you can see me parked on the ground here at the departure airfield. So we'll switch this back to arc mode for general navigation. Okay, you can see some notes come up. The predictive wind shear switch is off, and that's down here, so we can go and switch that on. So predictive wind shear. And it's got some checks that we need to do, but we're not going to worry too much about that. We're just messing around today. So there are no rules. Something you can do in this little nav map that's quite useful. If we pull up the elevation plot of our route, you can see there's our 20,000 feet on an IFR plan. You can see if there are any rules along the way that we have to adhere to. So we have to, on descent into San Francisco, there are some restrictions of altitude at the various waypoints, but we'll worry about that when we get there. Okay, so we're going to climb straight out to 20,000 feet off the runway, and we'll let the aircraft choose how it does it, just to show you what happens. We also need to program the QNH, so we can check that in a little nav map. So we go to Monterey and we show information. Monterey, we'll make this a bit smaller so we can see what we're doing. And we can see we're looking for the QNH, aren't we? Yes, sorry, I got confused there, thinking of too many things at once. So here we go, 3027 is the QNH. It's a barometric pressure. So we can switch the meter on this between hectopascals or inches, and then you can say we wanted 3027. If we press B on the keyboard, it will shortcut doing that for us. So that's interesting, it stayed on 2992, which I wasn't expecting. So I'm going to let the simulator do what it thinks the weather is. It may be that we are in the little nav map. Perhaps we are fetching the weather from somewhere else. Let's have a look. Oh no, it says it's getting it from Flight Simulator. Interesting. Okay, we're not going to worry too much about that. It's really splitting hairs when you come down to looking at that kind of thing. So let's go and set the speed on the master control panel for the autopilot. Ready for takeoff for 220 knots, should be fine. Okay, we've got the engines running. So we can turn this back to norm mode. We can go and turn off the Apu Bleed now, and we can turn off the APU. We can turn off the external power as well. And the aircraft is pretty much ready to go now. So normally you wouldn't have started the engines until you've completed pushback, so I've done things a little bit out of order. So we're going to come off the parking brake. So I've just done that with a key combination, but it's down here if you wanted to do that. So then you can press Shift P, and we can watch the aircraft be pushed back and probably run over the van behind us, but we're not going to worry too much because we're going to go straight out of runway 10 here. So while it's pushing back, let's just go and check that. So if we double click on Monterey, it will zoom in. So yeah, we are starting from here and flying straight out. So wait for the truck to pick up the aircraft and start pushing it. There it goes. It's a shame there's a stutter in the animation. In X-Plane it's very smooth with the in the better pushback mod, where it lifts the nose wheel slowly into the air and you get the back and forth communication with the crew. Oh, if anybody's watching this and is wondering where the other live stream went that I recorded a couple of days ago, I had a takedown notice from YouTube because I'd used royalty-free music, which you would think would be free to use, and it said all over the website it was free to use, but they only liked me using it under their own kind of rules. Okay, I'm just going to check something. I had no nose wheel steering there, so let's go and have a look. I think this is a new feature of this aircraft, so we're just going to go and have a quick look in here. Realism, separate the tiller, disabled. Okay. Yeah, it's behaving now. So I've heard from a few people they don't like the way the nose wheel steering now works in the FlyByWire A320. It's actually realistic now. In the real aircraft you select an angle with the tiller, and then hydraulic servos, I guess, rotate the nose wheel, but they take time to get it to the selected angle. So you have to have that in mind when you're steering. You haven't got a direct relation between what you tell the nose wheel to do and what happens. You know, it's the nose wheel has to get there, so it takes some time for that to happen. So we're not going to use ATC today. Let's just press that and let's get the flaps into takeoff position. So we're just pushing the flaps down. Go and line up on the runway. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. Just have a quick check round. We've got the heading mode on managed, altitude on managed, airspeed is set. We could use the auto settings for the throttle and everything, but we're not going to. You know, for toga power, things like that. So let's just do this by hand. So full throttle, steer gently. There's hardly any wind today. Coming up through 140 knots, I'll rotate to 140. Gear up, flaps up, autopilot on, auto throttle on, and throttle is speed mode. So we will increase to 250 knots. We'll also set the vertical speed, or sorry, the altitude to managed mode, so it's going to climb at the rate the autopilot wants to. So you can see the aircraft is now following the plot. So let's zoom in slightly. We could switch on some information in here to see the various waypoints that are nearby as we fly past them. To zoom out, we could switch on the VORs. There we go. Okay, so at this point, our job is mostly done. Oh, we didn't switch the lights on, did we? That's probably a punishable offence. So there we go. So we just got the seat belts on. We could probably turn the seat belt signs off now. This is just a fun flight. We have no passengers really. So there we go. We're climbing out of Monterey in the FlyByWire A320. Let's just go and check and see if the weather is on live. It is on live in live time as well. So it's a clear sky, clear day. Monterey this morning. I imagine we'll get a bit of mist over the San Francisco Bay in a few minutes, but looking good so far. Katie's Aura says hi at all. Hello Katie's Aura. We're live on YouTube, flying the FlyByWire A320 Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've got my cup of coffee here on the dashboard. I've got the FlyPad up and running. I haven't got anything built into SimBrief, so I can quickly show you how we can do that. For the purposes of the FlyPad, we can, while we're climbing out, we can go and look in SimBrief. So if we search for it on the internet as SimBrief, and we can say dispatch system, we want to do a new flight. So we were flying from KMRY to KSFO. So K, we'll put any old airline in, so British Airways for example, flight number 1234, KMRY to KSFO. So we're going to use the airframe for the A320. So what SimBrief does is gives you an operational flight pack for the aircraft, which is the ream of paperwork you see pilots unfurling in the cockpit when they're getting the plane ready, when you're waiting in the departure lounge at an airfield. So I'm just going to go into Little Nav Map, and I'm going to copy the flight plan from Little Nav Map into the clipboard, and then I'm going to go and run Notepad and paste it in here. We want this part of what we've written into the flight plan, and we are going to then paste that into SimBrief to say this is the actual route we want, and it will analyse it. And it's almost working. Notice is invalid. That's because that's a newer route than the one it's got. So let's try that. That's fine. Toro 7 not found. Okay, let's try Toro 6. Analyze route. It's not really not going to like it, is it? Toro. Okay. Let's just do this. To get it something, yeah, that's valid for an old version of AirAC, is because I've not got a paid account with SimBrief, so it's using old navigation data, so you can see the rough version of the flight plan there. So then we've got something that works. We can generate the flight plan, and we agree that we'll overwrite whatever we did before, so we can do that, and that gives us the operational flight plan package. So you can see now this is the paperwork that the real crew would have. So we can do that in the cockpit now. We can borrow it from SimBrief, and here it comes. So in here we can get at the details of our operational flight plan while we're in flight, which gives us all of the information about the route we're on. Okay, so let's just get rid of Notepad. We don't need that anymore. Don't save. And let's see where we are on the route. We're on our way out to PXN. We can see we're on managed speed mode. Oh no, we're not yet, so let's go and switch speed to managed mode now, because we've climbed up through 10,000 feet. We'll also pull the barometric pressure to go to standard. While we were busy in SimBrief, we could have done that a few minutes earlier, but it's fine. So the aircraft will now be accelerating, because once you get past 10,000 feet altitude, you are allowed to go faster than 250 knots. Below 10,000 feet you have to stay below 250 knots. Okay, so we can see we've got no notices appearing of anything we need to do. So far this has all been working wonderfully. Let's go and have a play with some of the functionality then in the A320. So if we go into the MCDU menu and go to ATSU, we should be able to go to AOC and a weather request. And let's get METAR information for the airports that we are programmed into the flight plan. So we've sent our METAR request. So if we come back to the AOC menu, there's a received messages option in here. So what we've done is sent a message out digitally to the ground stations to say, can we have the information please on the weather at the departure and destination airfields. So if we go and look in received messages, it's come back in now, so it sometimes takes a few moments for it to come back, but we've got it. So now we get a readout of the weather. We know wind speed and direction, cloud glares and all the rest of it. So here's the clever bit on the A320, it's a bit of a party piece. You can click print, and the little printer bursts into life in the corner of the console, and you get a printout of the weather, and you can, it's a bit, there's no animation for this, but you can tear that off and it sticks it in the middle of the dash, or in the middle of the console, so you can refer to it while you're flying. So I've been able to print out a weather report. I think that's really cool. Never gets old being able to do that. There's lots of other functionality built into the MCDU on the A320, but that's one of the more fun things. What airport am I at? I've just taken off from Monterey. So if we go and look on Little Nav Map, you will see I left Monterey Regional, and I'm now flying towards the VOR station PXN. Yeah, Panoche. I've just passed Salinas. So I'm over the San Francisco Bay, or southeast of the San Francisco Bay. So I'm going to fly this short route around and then come back in to San Francisco International. So let's go and have a look, and just have a look at the scenery. It's beautiful scenery, especially this kind of mist that's hanging over the ground. let's go and have a look at the map and figure out what those mountains are that we're seeing. So that ridge line behind me is the IFR Big Sur State Park. You can see that over there, two ridge lines. The closer ridge lines are the Pinnacles National Park, so that's these ones. Looking over to the aircraft's left, it's all very flat, it's farmland. Huge floodplain, I guess, across the southeast of the bay. See some hills in the far distance. So if we have a look at our plan, that's the line of mountains over here. So Yosemite National Park, basically, Sierra National Forest, and Kings Canyon National Park, and Sequoia National Park, Sequoia National Forest. So that's this whole ridge line we can see in the far distance. So here we go, you can see the aircraft is turning on the autopilot. It's just got to the next waypoint, so we can have a look inside. And we can see we are turning at PXN towards HYP. And if we go and look back on our map, you can see here we are turning at PXN. We're heading for HYP next. HYP is the abbreviation for El Nido, VOR station 114.20. We can go and program that in and switch over to using this in nav mode, which would give us different symbology, but we'll just leave it in GPS mode because it gives quite a nice neat view of where we are and where we're going. So one of the major differences you will see in the fly-by-wire is the rendering of this display. This is the A320 in Flight Simulator, but it has a mod installed in it by a group of developers that call themselves Fly-by-Wire, and some of the major work they've done is in the avionics suite within the aircraft and the flight model. So the rendering of your programmed flight in the flight management computer is transformed, so it's a lot closer to the real thing. So we've got a notice over here that we're transferring fuel with a crossfeed. A lot of the functionality around the radios and things have kind of been taken over the years by GPS. So you know, where you're programming fixes, as you might call them, waypoints. So if we zoom in on the map, all of these triangles are GPS fixes. So there's a database of longitude, latitudes. So that's what we can program into flight plans, or we can use VOR stations, or both. So the old-fashioned way of navigating would have been via VOR stations and ADF, automatic direction finding radio stations, which you don't see many of anymore. They're slowly becoming obsolete and being shut down. And the same is true of VOR stations, actually. They're slowly going away as well. Is the new update stable on DirectX 12 beta? I tried DirectX 12 about 2 weeks ago and it crashed to desktop on launch. And I tried it 2 or 3 times and it just repeatedly crashed. But that may be my hardware. I've got an NVIDIA 3080 graphics card and Intel CPU. So your mileage may vary, is all I can say, depending on your hardware. But I've gone back to DirectX 11 and I've not had any issues at all with DirectX 11. So you can see here, I've got the FlyByWire A320. It's a nice looking airplane. And we're flying over the southeast part of the San Francisco Bay, so we'll be approaching San Francisco soon, or the Bay I should say. So we're just coming out to HYP and then we'll turn back in. Flying along, we're going to have a few minutes to waste here, so I'm just going to leave the camera in a nice position overhead. I will go quiet for a few minutes and we can just watch the scenery rolling past underneath. So this is all photorealistic scenery, obviously, of the southeastern San Francisco Bay Area. Back in the cockpit. Let's see how we're doing. So we are approaching Always. It's about 20 miles away from us. So if you notice the circular rings on the plan display, we can change the range with the knob up here. So you can see we're 20 miles away from Always. Let's see if what the altitude looks like on the plot here, so we can make this bigger. So we can see in a bit more detail, and we can drag the map around as well. So you can see there are other aircraft in the area. We're going to be getting quite close and friendly with them. It looks like they're going to be going into San Francisco on the same standard instrument approach route as me. So hopefully I'm going to fall in between them. It really depends on the aircraft types and the speeds they're going, because I'm doing 390 knots, they're going 300 knots. So I might catch them. It's interesting, I would have expected this to show. Maybe I have to turn on, although we've got TCAS, so maybe they don't show up that far out, to be honest. Okay. Normally you switch on the traffic collision avoidance system, you'd expect to see the markers, unless... because there's the plane right there. Unless there's something I've not switched on. I'm not going to go looking at that during the flight, because that's going to be slightly dangerous. I'm just wondering if one of the buttons up here should show other aircraft. No, it's not, it's... okay. Just check the switches down here. So you've got the weather radar, which is inoperable at the moment. This is switched on. Above, below and all. Ah, we switch it to all. It's still not showing anybody. Okay, don't worry. Unless, of course, oh no, the humans wouldn't show up on the map in Little Nav Map, because human players don't show up via the SimConnect interface. So you can see we actually need to start descending. We need to be at, if we look at the constraints for Fly, above 14,000 feet. So we'll go for 15,000. So we will change that, go to managed mode and see what sort of rate it comes down at. We're not going tremendously quickly, so it shouldn't be a concern. So you can see the vertical speed has changed, the altitude is starting to come off. It sometimes takes a while before it starts descending. It's because the autopilot or the managed auto throttle will be pulling the throttles back before it puts the nose down to make sure you don't start accelerating. So it will actually manage the engines first. So sometimes you'll go for an altitude change, a descent, and it won't start descending straight away because it's retarding the engines first. Okay, so we're turning towards Fly and we're coming down slowly. So we can see that on the plot here. So as long as we stay within the constraints, we're good. We could actually get a little bit ahead of the game. We know when we get to R2, we need to be at 10,000 feet. I'm just wondering, just go to managed mode to get to 10,000 feet and let's see what happens with this. So 15, 16, 17, yeah, it's starting to drop quite heavily. I was just looking at R2 thinking, I wonder if that's a reference to Star Wars, but that makes no sense because Skywalker Ranch is at the north side of the bay. It's not on the south side of the bay. So I just wondered, although it could be a Star Wars reference with being, Skywalker Ranch being a Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, I think it's on, just north of San Francisco, up in the Marin Hills. Got quite a good story about that, but I'm not going to share it on the I'm not going to share it on the live feed in too much detail. Basically, my uncle lived next door to George Lucas many, many years ago when they first bought the farm that became Skywalker Ranch. So my uncle was also building a house that he lived in for many years. Anyway, let's have a look at this flight plan. So we can see our plot there. We are descending towards R2, so we should get there in time. If we don't, there's various tricks we can employ in the Airbus, like pulling the air brakes out, which will retard the speed and will allow the aircraft to descend even faster. So it's now going down at 2,500 feet a minute. Because we have helped it by putting the air brakes out, it means it can maintain a steeper pitch of descent. Which means we will get to R2. Because you will notice R2, it wants us at 10,000 feet, no questions asked, and 240 knots. So we need to keep an eye on the speed as well. Yeah, it's already aiming for 240 knots. So let's go and reduce the range on the arc mode. What runway am I landing on is being asked by Tracy Lee. I am going to land at San Francisco International on runway 19 left. So anybody that wants to see me come in, I'm on the West USA server, I believe. Let's go and have a quick check. I'm on the West USA server in Flight Simulator. So if you wanted to get to San Francisco ahead of time to watch me come in to land in a few minutes, it's going to be a little while yet because I've got to fly around the bay. So I'm just coming down over the hills to the northeast of San Francisco, or to the east of San Francisco. And then I'll be passing over Berkeley, going past Oakland, over the bay and into San Francisco International. So we're just following the standard instrument departure. Standard approach route down. It's very late in the UK. I apologise for me not being able to string two words together. It's just heading, it's 5 minutes to midnight here, whereas in the San Francisco Bay it's 8 hours before. Much more civilised time. Yeah, actually you can see that, because one of the nice things about living in the UK is we're on Zulu time during the winter. So the clock showing UTC or Zulu time is our actual time during the winter months. Obviously in the summer we then go to British summer time, which is plus 1 hour. So Tracy Lee, what gate am I going to? I have absolutely no idea. Should we go and have a look? So let's go and look at the airfield. We're just coming down to the height for R2, by the way, so I'm going to come off the air brake because we're flying at straight and level now. Let's go and have a look. So if we come in runway 19 left, then we're going to need to cross 19 right. Unless we roll to the end and then go around the edge. So let's go for parking bay number 18 maybe? Does that look okay? And we'll see how we do. So the next thing, we need to go to ADDMM on the descent. So let's make this a bit wider. ADDMM, we need to be at 9,000 feet, so just got to lose 1,000 feet. So we select 9,000 feet on the master control panel, go to manage mode, and the aircraft starts descending for us. Whoa, look at the windmills. I guess they like windmills, this part of the bay. Whoa! Is there really that many of them? That seems ever so slightly exaggerated. That's a lot of windmills. Okay, we better keep an eye on this now. ADDMM coming down to 9,000 feet, which is fine. We're doing 250 knots. So we're also going to transfer, because we're back under 10,000 feet, to 2992, or sorry, to selected QNH, and we need to set it to the destination airfield. So we can actually look on the METAR printout that we got of San Francisco International, and we can see here A3031. So this should be, that seems wrong, unless the B key just isn't working. So the 30 means this, so you roll this around to 3031. Yep, and that changes the altitude. Actually, to see that happen, watch the altitude number. So as I roll this and change the pressure, you can see the numbers changing here. So you're recalibrating the altitude. And we have a klaxon. It's 2890. That's interesting. Right, so if I press B, yeah, it wants it to be standard. It's probably a lower transition altitude, this part of the world. That's what it's complaining about. So this is the radio, or sorry, radar altimeter, showing us height above the ground, I guess, to 740 meters. Okay, let's see where we are on this plot. We're going to Cogga next. The lowest altitude we can come through Cogga is 7,000 feet, so we'll go for 8,000. Or should we go for 7,500? Just to stay within the bounds of the guidance. So let's have a look and see where we are on the map. So we're just coming in north of the bay. We've got the Morgan Territory Regional Preserve over to the right of us, which is just here. And you should be able to see over there, you can see the San Francisco Bay now, over to our left. And you can see San Ramon over here, the Doolin Canyon Regional Preserve over to our left over here. So then a little bit further across you can start to see the bay, the southern end of the bay, and Fremont, Redwood City, and so on, San Jose. So if we look further over there, you've got San Jose down there. Okay, so we're coming down to Cogga. Next one after Cogga will be Barks at 5,000 feet. So we'll wait till we come through Cogga. So let's go back inside the aircraft so we can see where we are. So here comes Cogga on the arc display. And then we'll have Barks. That looks almost like a discontinuity there, doesn't it? I wonder if it's just a rendering issue. Let's go and check before we get there, just to make sure we don't have an issue. Right, it's saying manual flight, so let's go and actually delete that. Well, it won't let me because it's part of the standard instrument approach route. So we'll have to keep an eye on the autopilot when we get there to make sure it flies the route we think it should be flying. So we're at 7,500 feet at Cogga, which is what we wanted, and we're going down to 5,000 feet for Barks. So we're going to go and get that ready now. And we start descending now for 5,000 feet. I think, is it 6,000 feet in the US? What is your transition altitude for setting the barometric pressure? It varies from city to city, or sector to sector, I think. So you have to excuse my ignorance on that one. When you land on runway, I'm the 737 at the end. Okay, Tracy, that's great. I'll see you there. And we got somebody spamming the feed with their site by the look of it. Thanks a lot for that. Okay, so obviously the Bay Bridge is out there in the far distance. We've got Oakland over here. And if we move away from, oh, it's in the sunshine, it's the, you can't actually see where San Francisco International is yet, but we'll be there soon enough. So we're dropping down to 5,000 feet. So the Airbus is doing its thing. Scenery around here is amazing, isn't it? So just have a quick look at the map to see where we're flying over. Valley Vista, Eastport Canyon, Moraga, and the Siesta Valley Recreation Area we're just coming up on. We're just passing Orinda Intermediate School. There's a couple of schools below us. Yeah, there's one there, there's another couple here. Here comes the bay. There's the Oakland Bay Bridge. So we're just about to make our turn at Bucks. So let's keep an eye on the aircraft now, because we need to find out if this is going to obey the next leg, or if the autopilot will disengage, or we're looking for if the aircraft's going to start turning, basically. Will it do it on its own, or do we have to intervene? We're watching the flight director. Is it suddenly going to kick left? Will it try to find the rest of the flight plan or not? It's not looking hopeful at the moment, but we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. It may do a looping course correction. So we are passing Bucks right now. Okay, let's do a direct 2 to shake to jump this through the autopilot. So direct to shake. Go for it. So I've forced the aircraft to turn left. So there's the Golden Gate Bridge out in the distance out there. You can just about see it in the sunshine. So we need to keep an eye then on the heights. What height should we be at shake? Above 2,800, so we'll go for 3,000. So we're descending for 3,000 feet. We're going to drop the flaps now. So you can see now we're going to fly straight past Oakland. Am I using ATC? No, I'm not going to use ATC, because otherwise I can't talk at the same time. I'd be preoccupied with talking to ATC. So I'm just going to come in and land at the airfield. So auto throttle is still on. We're on managed speed mode, so the aircraft has slowed right down to 160 knots. So I'm going to put some more flaps out to make it a bit safer. And you can see San Francisco International out there in the distance. And we've earned some points for the free Xbox stuff apparently. Whoop-de-doo, great. So, we're coming in. Let's go and turn some landing lights on. Turn the seatbelt sign on. We're going incredibly slowly. So I'm switching over. We can now see the approach mode for the airport. Let's just go and check that we've got the right frequencies. So let's go and have a look. We're just coming in 108.90. So the aircraft is slowly centering itself up on the localizer. We are above the glide slope though. Seems to be it wants us to be. Oh, we're still at 4,000 feet, I guess. We're descending for 3,000. So the diamond is starting to move up for the vertical part of the glide slope. So let's get wheels down. So there you can see alongside us. Is that the Hamilton? I can never remember the names of all these airfields. Almeida Naval Air Station. That's Almeida Naval Air Station. And then just further along here is Oakland International. So obviously you've got Oakland sprawling across this side of the bay. We're heading for San Francisco International, and we're heading directly for the runway now. We can't see much because of the glare. You can just about see the runway right in front of us now. We're only just above stall speed. It's quite scary. And now, because I'm above, I'm going to go for manual control. Because we are above the glide slope, it's not going to use approach mode. So I've taken control. So let's go and descend a little bit more rapidly and go and reacquire the vertical part of the glide slope. That's my own fault. While I was talking earlier, we obviously should have been descending more quickly, and I wasn't doing so.
2,500.
So here comes the diamond on the glide slope. It's not much fun flying into the sun, is it? You can't really see very much, not very easily. So someone's asking on the YouTube feed, how do I get good? Practice. Another great way of getting good is to fly with other people that you can ask questions of, and they can answer, show you or observe you doing things. So there's a very good Discord server that I'm an administrator of called virtualflight.online. If you go to virtualflight.online on the web, you'll see the link to the Discord server. And we fly regularly together throughout the week, and on Sunday evenings we usually do a VFR flight, so with general aviation aircraft. There's usually, I think last week there was 30 of us, and we were all flying in formation and messing around, doing aerobatics and circuits and landings and things, and it was great fun. But yeah, the best way to learn is either from other people or just by experimenting. You're in a simulator, it's free. Once you've got the simulator and the computer, it doesn't cost anything to go for a fly and to try something out. Okay, so you can see now we're coming down to the glide slope. We're on the centre line. Somebody taking off directly towards us, which wouldn't have happened if we were using ATC, obviously, because they wouldn't have people arriving and departing on the same runway. So we're just going to pull the nose up gently.
Too low terrain.
So we're going to keep an eye on the speed. Going full flaps now. Whoa, is there something wrong with the throttle here? I suddenly gunned the throttle. What's going on?
300.
Okay, we're fine. Throw the brakes out.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5.
A little bit heavy, but it's fine. Flaps up. I think we said we were going to go for the far end of the runway, didn't we? We're just going to roll along on purpose. Start steering. Whoa, that stuttered really badly. We saw that as I came in over the apron as well. I don't know if you noticed, it started stuttering. There's another A320 coming out onto the runway over there. that's runway 01. Get around behind this plane and go and park up. Somewhere over here. Wheel brakes on. So generally in the A320 you will either be looking to see if external power is available, and it is, so we can use it, otherwise you'd have to power back up the APU. So we can go to external power. Now we can safely switch the engines off without losing electricity to all the systems on the aircraft. So we can, obviously you talk to the tower when you're doing this normally, but you can just go and switch the engines off now and it won't cause a major panic with the power to the systems. He says, oh there it comes, there's the external power kicking in. So the crossfeed didn't happen immediately, which is quite interesting. I'm going to turn off the nav systems. Interestingly, look, the external power has not... Oh yes, something you notice about the A320 or the Airbus aircraft, the way the buttons work on the various panels is they are lit up if they need your attention. Yeah, so you've got things like the fuel pumps. They are lit up if you need to do something with them. But interestingly, these should have been off, and they're kind of on. So the cold and dark state of the FlyByWire A320 is a bit odd. There are some switches that are on already that really shouldn't be. So it's a bit of a memory game with remembering what's been done and what hasn't, if that makes sense. So we're just going to go through and clear the aircraft back down. And the seatbelt sign's off, so then you hear all the passengers go crazy trying to get out of their seats behind us. We can turn that off. That's pretty much it, really. Obviously, if we could go cold and dark now if we wanted to, so we can go and turn the batteries off. We could remove external power completely and the whole thing goes dark. So we have a very dark, very quiet aircraft all of a sudden. Whoa, look at that stuttering. So there you go. Interestingly, I've still got power over the air brakes, which I had left up because I didn't check things properly. So that's interesting. There's no power to anything on the aircraft, but I was still able to drop the air brakes. How's that possible when there's no hydraulic systems running? So let's have a look at the chat. I just landed a Beechcraft Baron G58 without wheels and still got 79 feet per minute. Quite proud of that. Am I flying again? Possibly later on. But I don't want to have different subjects on the same feed, but I'll probably stay on this server, so I'll go and stop recording, but I'll stay hanging around and I'll go switch the labels on. Okay, I'll record another one again soon.